Right, my dear children. So, we studied about the magnetic field and we discussed how the magnetic field is going to behave, and we identified that the magnetic field is always going to point from north direction to south direction. The magnetic field lines or the magnetic field is always pointing south direction starting from the north. So, now in this chapter we'll discuss about the geomagnetism. The geomagnetism. So, we know that if you take a magnet, when a magnet is freely hung on a certain stand or else a support, you can observe the north and the south poles of a magnet always going to show the north and south directions of our earth. So here you know that north south directions of the earth can be identified by using a compass. So we studied that in a compass also we can observe a small magnet. So when a magnet is freely rotated, when a magnet is freely rotated, or when it's been allowed to rotate freely, always the magnet is going to show the north and the south directions of our earth. So that's how the compass has been created. So compass is going to show north and south directions because it is a magnet. So when a compass is kept horizontally near the surface of the earth, its needle turns along the north and south directions. So in a compass, if you place it horizontally on a surface, right? Let's imagine that I'm going to place a compass on the earth, on the earth crust, on our ground. So when it is being kept on the ground, we can observe that it will point north and south directions. So why always a magnet turns to north and south directions? Why it is not turned into other directions like east or west or any other? So now in this part we are discussing what is the main reason of turning a magnet to north and south direction. Right. So in order to identify this phenomena or this incident, I'm going to carry out a simple experiment. So in this experiment, we'll be identifying a certain feature that the earth contains, which referred as the geomagnetism. So to conduct this activity, we'll be needing these materials. So we'll be needing, take the side somewhat up. So we'll be needing these materials. First, a compass. We'll be needing a compass. Then a bar magnet. Then a piece of thread. Then a stand. So I told you in the earlier chapter, it's essential to use a wood stand. A wooden stand is the one which is more probable to use when you are doing experiments related to magnets. It's because that I told you earlier, if you use magnetic materials, then the magnets will turn to those magnetic materials in the direction of the magnetic material, and your observations would get faulty. So it's probable to use a wooden stand in this experiment. So these are the things which you need. So you'll be needing a compass, bar magnet, piece of thread, and a stand. Right. So let's see how to conduct the activity. Method. So hang one bar magnet horizontally on the stand using the piece of thread. Actually in this activity we will be needing two bar magnets. we'll be needing 2 bar magnets. Okay, we'll be needing 2, one to hang and other one to check the rotation, or to check what happens when a magnet is when you brought a magnet closer to the hung magnet, right? So we'll be needing 2 bar magnets. We'll be needing 2 bar magnets, one to hang freely and the other is to bring near that hung magnet. Okay, so first you need to hang 1 bar magnet horizontally on the stand using the piece of thread. By using the piece of thread, we need to hang 1 bar magnet on the stand. That's the first step. So in the next thing, keep the bar magnet hung on the stand and 2 compasses about 2 meters apart from each other. So we'll be needing 2 compasses. Actually, you can do it from 1 compass as well, but 2 would be more probable. So you'll be needing 2 compasses, and you need to do what? Keep the bar magnet hung on the stand and 2 compasses about 2 meters apart from each other. You need to place it 2 meters apart from each other. Okay, right. So take another bar magnet and bring one of its pole closer to each compass and to the magnet hung on the stand. Now this is the magnet, and we need to keep a compass. Then we need to bring, right, we need to keep another compass like this. We need to keep another compass like this. This is the second compass. Then we need to bring that other magnet near the 2 compasses like this. And you need to observe the deflection of the deflection of this compass, and deflection of this one, and also the deflection of hung magnet as well. Okay, you need to observe the deflection, what happens, right? Then you have to remove it, place it in a different location, and observe what happens when you place this 2 compasses and the magnet by removing this thing. You know that always it's going to point the north direction. Don't bring this thing that much closer so that the needle would attract to this magnet. That's why we need to keep it like 2 meters apart. Okay, it's because that if you keep it somewhat near to it, then the needle of the compass will get attracted towards the magnet. So remember to keep it at a somewhat distance. Okay, right? So what you have to do? Take another bar magnet and bring one of its poles closer to each compass and to the magnet which is hung on the stand. So this is the way of doing the experiment. Now let's see what happens in this experiment, and we'll head on to the lab and let's see what happens. Right, my dear children. Now in this activity, we'll be investigating the factors which are essential for the turning of these magnets to certain directions in our earth. You know that a freely hung magnet is going to turn towards the north and south poles of our earth. So we'll be investigating why does a magnet is going to turn towards the north and south directions of the earth. Right. So to investigate this thing, I have used a magnet here. Now this magnet is hung freely, right? And I have 2 compasses. Now it's better to keep the 2 compasses like about 2 meters apart from each other. But in this situation, when comparing with the spacers, I have kept these two like about a meter of a distance, right? So it's all, if you want, you can keep the two compasses like 2 meters apart each other, right? That would be better to get some more accurate observations. So however, right, we will be conducting by keeping like this way according to our spacers right here. So now let's see how to get some observation from this activity. Now I have a magnet here, you can see. So the north pole of this magnet is pointing in that direction, and also I have a compass here. So in this compass, you can see from this compass, right, these are the two compasses that I have, like one meter apart from each other, right? So this compass needle also showing that direction as the north, and this compass needle also showing that direction as the north. And also you can observe in here, right, also you can observe in here, the north pole is directed towards the same direction as the compasses. Now I have a bar magnet. Now I am going to check what would happen if I am going to bring near this bar magnet near the hung magnet and also on the other two compasses. So we'll take the first compass. See, I'm not even taking it closer to the compass. You can see that the compass needle is turning when I'm turning this, right? When I'm turning this magnet here and there, just no need to keep that even near. See, if I'm going to take it near, then it is going to rotate heavily. So even if I'm going to turn it like this way, not even closer to the compass, even though it is not closer to the compass, see, the compass needle is going to rotate, right? So here you can observe it's getting attracted and the direction is going to change, right? Now I'm going to take away the magnet and observe what will happen. Once again it is pointing towards the, see, north direction. The red color area always pointing towards the north direction. Now I am going to take my bar magnet once again and I am going to bring it closer this hung magnet. See, can you observe the south pole of the bar magnet, which is hung, is coming towards this north pole. See, you can clearly observe this thing, right? Means that the direction is changing. So if I am going to turn, see, it would turn, see, and it will change the direction. Now I am going to freely suspend it once again and it would rotate, and ultimately once again it would align in the same direction as the like in the compasses, that those two directions are north and south, right, my dear children? Now you can observe that the magnet has stopped the rotation and it is pointing towards that direction, means the north. Here you can observe it by using the compass in here. See, the north direction. See, it's the north direction, right? And also you can see that this magnet is also pointing towards the north direction. Now I'm going to take my magnet once again and I'm going to point it towards the other compass and see whether the direction is changing. Of course the direction is changing. See, the direction is changing when I'm going to turn the magnet. And also if I'm going to keep it like in here, like in this kind of a place, see, you can observe this one is also going to change the direction, and as well as this one is also changing its course. See, can you see that? You can clearly observe. So I'm going to place it like this way, right? I'm facing the north pole like this, and you can observe that the south pole is attracted towards the north one, and in this magnet also, the south pole would attract towards the north pole. So we'll wait until the rotation is going to finish. Right. So my dear children, to take the observations quite clearly, I have taken the magnet somewhat up so that the magnetic field of this magnet would directly affect the hung magnet. So you can clearly observe that this magnet is going to turn towards the direction or towards the magnetic field of this magnet. So if I am going to change it, see, it always attracts towards this magnet. So it is quite obvious to us that in this compass, the magnet which we hung and the other compass which is somewhat far away, all of these three instruments, the direction of these three instruments is going to affect when I am going to give an external magnetic force, or when I am taking this instrument near to a external magnetic field. Always this instrument would show the direction of the magnetic field which is located externally. You can see that if I am going to take the south pole of this one, then see, you can observe, I am not going to take somewhat closer to it, even though I am keeping it like this way. See, you can observe that the north pole is always showing the south pole of the magnet. And when I am going to take the compass also, when I am going to keep it near the compass also, it is also pointing towards the north pole of the compass, also pointing towards the south pole of this magnet. Now I am going to take it near to the second compass. So here to the second compass, see the rotation of the compass clearly. See, it's getting attracted towards the magnet. So this is the magnet and this is the north pole. It's getting attracted towards the magnet. So it is obvious to us that external magnetic field is the reason for this turning in each of these instruments. No matter whatever the compass, it's going to turn to the direction of a certain magnetic field, to an external magnetic field. So my dear children, I'm going to keep the magnet away. Now once again I am going to check to which kind of a direction does this going to turn, right? So we'll wait until the magnet is going to finish the rotation. Right, my dear children, then you can observe that once again all of these three instruments would align in north and south directions. It's because that we can conclude there is an external magnetic field around our earth. That's why these instruments are aligning towards the north and south directions. I told you that in the earlier case, these magnets, you know that the compasses are also made from magnets, right? So these magnets would turn to a certain direction or would turn away from a certain direction due to another magnetic field. So my dear children, this is the reason for the turning of each of these instruments. So these instruments or these magnets are turning always towards the north and south direction due to having a magnetic field around our earth. So finally we can say that our earth contains a certain magnetic field, and due to that magnetic field, when a magnet is freely hung on our environment, these magnets always going to turn towards the north and south directions. It's because that north and south directions are the ones which contain the magnetic poles of our earth. So those are the two directions which contains the magnetic poles of our earth. So this magnetic field around our earth is called as the geomagnetism. So due to this geomagnetism effect, the magnets, when they are freely pivoted or when they are freely hung, they would always turn towards the north and south direction. Right. So let's discuss further thing related with the geomagnetism then. Right, my dear children, so we conducted that activity, and in this figure I have shown once again the apparatus as well. So we need to keep two compasses at the either sides of the magnet like this. Okay, then we are placing the bar magnet like this, and now let's observe what's going to happen. We have observed what's going to happen, right? So when we observed that if it is kept in this kind of a location, if it is kept in this kind of a location without bringing that other magnet near to these, we could observe that always this compass, this magnet and the other compass, all of these three would point to north and south directions. That's obvious because we know that all of these three contain magnets. All of these three contain magnets. So magnets are pointing north and south when they are freely hung or when they are freely pivoted. So when you bring a different magnet near to these three instruments, in that kind of a situation, we can observe there is a deflection in the readings of the compasses, and as well as there is a deflection in the magnet which is hung as well. So here, when magnet and the compasses are kept free, these will turn and align in north and south directions. We know that. So this is that situation. Compasses and the magnet which is hung turned when another magnet is brought closer to them. When we are going to bring a different magnet near to this, in that kind of a situation, these compass needles, right? These compass needles, or else the magnet which hung is going to move to a different location. It's because that here we are influencing another magnetic field onto these magnets. We are going to influence another magnetic field. Magnets are turned to the direction of a magnetic field. That's the observation that's the final conclusion that we can take from this experiment. If you are being asked to turn a magnet without touching it, then you can use a different magnet, right? If you want to attract that magnet towards the magnet that you have, you keep the unlike poles together, and if you want to repel away that magnet, then you can place the like poles together. So in that kind of situation, the other magnet would repel away. So my dear children, we can come into a final conclusion that magnets are only deflected, magnets are only turned when there is a magnetic field. Then how come when a free hung magnet turns to north and south direction? So it is obvious to us that our Earth contains a magnetic field which runs from north to south directions. That's why a freely hung magnet always going to show the north and south directions of our Earth. So, conclusion, though the position of bar magnets and compasses are changed. Now, if you want, you can change the positions as well, right? No matter whatever the position, right? What happens? Their poles turn to the same direction because there is a large magnetic field around the Earth through north and south poles, right? So no matter in what kind of a place, always these magnets are going to turn to north and south directions. It's because that there is a huge magnetic field around our earth from north to south pole. Our earth is behaving like a large magnet, a giant magnet. So the north and the south pole of this giant magnet runs from north pole to south pole of our earth as well, right? So this is the final conclusion that we could come up with this experiment. So magnets are repelling or attracting or turning to a different location or to a different position under an influence of another magnetic field. So that's why when a magnet is freely hung, it's going to turn to north and south direction, because our earth is also behaving like a giant magnet, and the north and south poles of our earth is same as the north and south poles of a magnet, right? So this is the final conclusion that we can come up with the experiment. So right, my dear children, so we can say that finally magnetic field existing near the earth. Now I told you that earth is behaving like a huge magnet. So in any kind of a place of the earth, there is a magnetic field which runs from north to south pole. So the magnetic field existing near the earth is known as geomagnetism. This magnetic field which occur on our earth is referred as the geomagnetism. So in this point, you can see what is the reason of having a magnetic field around our earth. How does this magnetic field or the geomagnetism is going to create within our earth? So see, liquefied metal currents circulate around the axis of the earth because of high temperature at the core of the earth. Now, you know that there are several parts in our earth. In the earlier grades, we discussed that there is structure of the earth. When you take the structure of the earth crust, mantle, core, like that way, there are different types of structures, right? So in these structures, you also have studied that there are liquefied metal. So during the rotation of the earth, these liquefied metals are also going to turn or rotate. So these metal currents, liquefied metal currents, current means a flow. So these liquefied metal flow or the metal currents, right? So liquefied metal currents circulate around the axis of the earth, and because of high temperature, because of the high temperature of the core. Now, inside the earth core, let's imagine that this is the core. So in this core, the liquefied metal is going to circulate. Liquefied metal is circulating around the core when the earth is going to rotate. So in that situation, right, what happens? The magnetic field of earth is the result of that electric currents generated, right? So magnetic field of the earth is the result of the electric current thus generated. So due to this reason, due to this circulation of liquefied metal, an electric current is getting created. An electric current is going to create within the earth. So those electric currents will result a magnetic field, right? So the magnetic field of the earth is the result of the electric currents which created or thus created because of the rotation of liquefied metal around the core of the earth. So in this situation, always there is a magnetic field which runs from north pole to south pole like this. This is our final conclusion. So you can observe how it is going to behave within this figure. So I'll remove those lines which I have drawn so that you can observe this magnetic field very clearly. So this is the magnetic field or the geomagnetism which occurs in our earth. So you know that unlike poles are the ones which are getting attracted in a magnet. So we discussed that if you take the north pole of the magnet, it's going to direct to north pole of the earth. That means if you take the geomagnetism, south pole of the geomagnetism is located through the north direction of the earth. See, like this. So here you can observe this is that magnet, the giant magnet inside the earth. You can clearly observe the south pole of it, right? You can clearly observe the south pole of it. So here you can clearly observe the south pole of it. See, this is the south pole. You can clearly observe the south pole. That's why if you take any kind of a magnet and when you freely hang it by using a thread or any kind of a material, definitely that will turn to, that north pole will turn to north direction of the earth. It's because that north direction of the earth contains the south pole of the geomagnetism, right? When you take the geomagnetism, the magnetic field of our earth, right? When you take the magnetic field of our earth, the north pole of the magnetic field of our earth or the geomagnetism always at the south direction, and south pole of our geomagnetism or the magnetic field of our earth is always at the north direction. That's why when you hang a free magnet, free, right, always that magnet turns, always the north of the magnet is going to turn to that north direction of our earth, right? So this is the geomagnetism. So here, therefore, when a compass or a magnet is kept freely near the earth, its north and south poles are directed around the magnetic field of the earth. So therefore, when you hang a magnet free, always a magnet is going to show north and south directions. North pole will directed towards the north of the earth, and south pole of a magnet will always directed to south pole of the earth, right? So it's because that when you take the geomagnetism, south pole of geomagnetism runs through the north direction of the earth. North pole of the geomagnetism runs through south pole of the earth. That's why when a magnet is freely hung, north and south poles directed towards the magnetic field of the earth. Right. So we'll move on to see other details about this geomagnetism. There is a little bit of a difference. So there is a little difference between the real north and the magnetic north of the earth. If you take the real north and the magnetic north, right? Real north means the real north direction of our earth. Magnetic north means when you hang a free magnet, the north pole is going to turn to a certain direction, no? So that direction is the magnetic north. Okay, so there is a small bit of a difference between this real north and the magnetic north. Difference means there is a certain bit of an angle. There is a certain bit of an angle. See, you can observe when you take the true north and the magnetic north, there is a certain bit of an angle between the true north and the magnetic north. So the magnetic north lies a few degrees northwest. This is north, so you know that this is west, no? So to the northwest direction, right? To the northwest direction, there is some kind of a tilt, right? Or else an angle. So the magnetic north lies few degrees northwest from the real north. That's why in the earlier case we drew the geomagnetism like in this kind of a angle, like to this kind of an angle, right? Like this. This is the magnetic north, right? Magnetic north means this is the south pole of the geomagnetism. So if you hang a magnet, then the magnet would turn to this direction, the south pole of the geomagnetism. So the true north lies like in this kind of a direction, and the true south is below it. This is the magnetic north, this is the true north. So there is an angle. There is an angle between the magnetic north and the true north, right? Okay. So now we discussed about the geomagnetism and we discussed about the true north thing and the magnetic north thing. We discussed why does a free hung magnet is going to direct always towards the north and south direction. It's because of the geomagnetism. Now we are going to study about a different part which related with the magnets lesson. So in this part we are discussing about temporary magnets and permanent magnets. We start in temporary magnets and permanent magnets. So once again, you are given with a point C. There are two types of magnets. Two types of magnets can be identified when considering the users of magnets. When we are considering or when we are applying the knowledge of magnets, there are two types of magnets. So those two types of magnets are, number one, like in here, temporary magnets. These temporary magnets are also called as electromagnets. These are also called as electromagnets, temporary magnets. Then the next one is permanent magnets. Second one is permanent magnets. First one is temporary magnets. Temporary magnets is the first one, and the second one is the permanent magnets. So we can identify these permanent magnets in different places. The permanent magnets are the ones that has a permanent magnetic field, means that their magnetic field is not going to fade away for a long time period. The normal bar magnets that we used in earlier cases when we are conducting several experiments related to magnets, So those things are considered as permanent magnets. There are different shapes of permanent magnets. We studied that thing at the previous chapters. So those are the ones which are referred as the permanent magnets. Then the next one is the temporary magnets, or these things are called as electromagnets most of the times, right? Electromagnets. When you take electromagnets or the temporary magnets have magnetic field for short time period. For a short time period, we can observe the magnetic power in a temporary magnet. Means that when time is going to pass by, its magnetic field is going to fade away within a short time period, not for a long time period. If it is going to be last for a longer time period, then it is referred as a permanent magnet. If the magnetic field or the magnetic power is going to lose within a short time period, then it is referred as a temporary magnet. Most of the times these things are referred as electromagnets because we use electricity in making these magnets. In making these types of magnets, the temporary magnets, we use electricity, right? I think you have seen or you have observed there is a certain machine which used to lift large weights, container lifters that the people used in harbors, and waste scrap materials like cars and vehicles. Those things are also getting lifted by using a machine called crane. There is a crane. So when you take a crane, it's like this. It's a handle like this, and this it's been operated within a certain machine, and it has a wheels. So this part is the one which is referred as the crane, and this part is being connected to a vehicle, right? So this part is the one which is referred as the electromagnet. It's the electromagnet. This is the electromagnet. So a person is going to turn on the switch, means he is going to supply the current. So when supplying current, the magnetic power is going to last, or magnetic power or the magnetic field is going to start, and whatever the types of materials, magnetic materials like vehicles, or iron bars, iron filings, whatever, all of these things are getting attracted to the magnet. So these scraps are being used to recycle. So that's how the vehicle scraps and other metallic materials, magnetic materials could be separated or can be lifted by using a crane. In container lifters also we use these electromagnets, right? They have a large magnetic field, huge magnetic field. That magnetic field is enough to carry a container from one place to another, right? Okay, so this is about the electromagnet or the temporary magnets. Now let's see further details which related to these magnets. So now in this part, we'll be discussing how to identify the temporary magnets, how we can identify temporary magnets. So to identify a temporary magnet, first of all, we need to make a temporary magnet. First of all, we need to make a temporary magnet. So in this activity, to identify the features of a temporary magnet, we'll be building a small temporary magnet. So let's see what are the materials that we need in making this temporary magnet. So we'll be needing an iron nail. So you'll be needing an iron nail first. Iron nail. So you'll be needing an iron nail first. Next one, copper coil. We'll be needing a copper coil. When you take a copper coil, most of the times, when you take a copper coil from the market, most of the times, these copper coils are being insulated. Insulated means some kind of a polythene wrap, right? Polythene or a different material which do not conduct electricity, insulated material, right? That kind of a material is being wrapped around the copper coil. So therefore, most of the times these coils are referred as insulated copper coils. Insulated copper coils, right? So these copper coils, most of the times they are insulated, right? When you take the wires, distribution wires, that wires which runs in your house to provide electricity to your house, so those wires are also made up with copper, but they have a PVC covering, or else a plastic covering in simple, right? So that covering helps to insulate the copper wire, right? So we can touch those wires without being electrically shocked. It's because that there is a covering, right? In the same way, in these copper coils also, there is a insulated covering around it. Okay, right? So we need a copper coil. Then after that, we'll be needing a dry cell. If it is better, you can use a dry cell of 9 volts. It is better to use a 9 volt dry cell. If you don't have a 9 volt dry cell, then you can use simple AAA type batteries as well. Okay, 9 volt batteries somewhat better because when providing more electricity, magnetic field which is generated from the electromagnet or from the temporal magnet would also get increased. So therefore, it's good to use a 9 volt battery. So we need a tape. A cello tape would do, right? We need a tape, any kind of a tape, cello tape or gum tape, like that. Black tape is also okay. Then we need a bar magnet. We need a bar magnet. And we need file clips. File clips. And a switch. We need a switch. So these are the materials which we need, right? And then now let's see what is the method. So this is the method. First of all, wind the insulated copper wire around the iron nail or iron rod. If you don't have an iron nail, then you can use a piece of iron rod as well. Okay, right. So to make a coil, first of all, we have to make a coil like this by winding the insulated copper wire around the iron nail. We have to wind it around the iron nail like this, right? So this is the iron nail. Around the iron nail we are wrapping, or we are turning this coil. We are turning this coil on the iron nail like this. Okay, right. So when you are turning or when you are making into a coil, remember the two ends should be taken so that we can connect these two ends to the dry cell. Remember it. So wind the insulated copper wire around the iron nail or iron rod to make a coil. Scrap both ends of the coil and connect it to the dry cell. Now what we have to do, I told you that this copper coil is going to contain an insulation part. So we have to scratch it out by using a sandpaper, or else by using a small knife, or else if you want you can scratch it on the floor as well, right? We have to remove it. We have to remove that insulation part. Okay, we have to remove that insulation part only at the two ends, not on the whole wire or the whole copper wire, but on the two ends. At the two ends you have to remove that insulation part, because those two ends are the ones which is getting connected to the dry cell. So the current would not travel if you don't have, current would not travel if you are not going to remove that insulation part, right? So it's really important to scratch out that insulation part of the copper wire, right? So scrap both ends of the coil and connect it to the dry cell, right? So we scrap these two ends and connecting that one to the 9-volt dry cell like this. And there is a switch as well. So remember, you connect that switch. Remember to connect that switch. Remember to connect that switch to this setup. It's because that if we want, then we can disconnect the switch without disconnecting these terminals from the dry cell. We can just turn off the switch instead of disconnecting the terminals from the dry cell. So the switch can be used to disconnect or connect the coil with the dry cell. Okay. So bring the coil close to the file clips while supplying electricity and see what happens. Now you need to turn on the switch and we need to bring some file clips. We need to bring some file clips and we need to observe what happens when you turn on the switch. So it is obvious to that. So it is obvious to us that the file clips are going to attract to the iron nail, right, in this experiment. You can clearly observe these iron nails would attract. So my dear children, let's head on to the lab and we'll see whether these file clips are getting attracted or not. So my dear children, now I have a copper wire like this. You can observe the copper wire like this. Now in this activity, by using this copper wire, we are going to make a temporary magnet, right? So temporary magnet is a magnet which the magnetic power or the magnetism is remain for a short time period. In a temporary magnet, the magnetism or the magnetic power is remain for a short time period. So by using this copper wire, this is an insulated copper wire. So by using this insulated copper wire, we are going to make this temporary magnet. So the instrument that we need given in here, will be needing several pens, a permanent magnet, an iron nail, some dry cells and a switch and some connecting wires. So let's see how to make this temporary magnet. So first of all, you have to take this insulated copper wire or the copper string. Insulated means if you take the string, now you can see that this has a quite unique color. But when I am going to scrape it by using a small bit of a sandpaper, I am going to scrape it like this. So when I am going to scrape it down like this, you can observe two different colors. It's because that here you can now observe the original color of copper. See, it has a quite shine, like a good shine. You know that is referred as the metallic luster. So it has a good shine. So when you take the area like this, it doesn't show a shine like this because these areas are covered by an insulation, a plastic layer, right? So Remember, when you are taking these insulated copper wires and when you are connecting it to a certain electric source, we have to scrap it by using a sandpaper or else by using a sharp instrument. We have to scrap it like this. Then after that only we need to connect it to an electric source. So in that way we could flow electricity, or we can allow to flow electricity through the copper wire. This is the one which is referred as the insulated copper wire or the copper string, right? So I'll be needing some dry cells. So I have used, see, I have used a case to apply or case to fix the two dry cells, and some connecting wires and some crocodile clips to hold the terminals. And also there is a switch so that I can connect and disconnect. And the main one is this iron nail. So we'll be needing an iron nail to wrap around the wrap the coil around it. Okay. So first step is to take this and you need to wrap this insulated copper wire around the iron nail like this. Wrap it like this. So if you can increase the number of turns which the coil is going to wrap around with the iron nail, in that case you can increase the magnetic power as well. So it's good to have good number of rotations or turns around the iron nail. Right. So I have wrapped the copper wire around the iron nail, and now I am going to take this iron nail near these pins. So you could observe that there is no magnetic power to attract these pins. These pins are not getting attracted to this iron nail. But when you take this bar magnet, and when I am going to take the bar magnet near these, here you can observe that the nails or the pins are getting attracted towards the magnet because the magnet has magnetic properties. But in this case, you could see clearly now there is no magnetic property in this magnet. Now what I am going to do is I am going to connect these two terminals. I have already scratched it, so I don't need to scratch it once again. I have already scratched it, right? So I'm going to connect these two terminals to the dry cells by using these crocodile pins, right? And now I'm going to turn the switch on, right? And I'm going to take near this iron nail, see, you can clearly observe that the iron nail can attract these pins. See, iron nails can attract these pins. Okay. So my dear children, now I am going to disconnect the current by removing this crocodile pin. So you can see that some iron nails are still getting attracted towards the iron nail. Some pins are getting still attracted towards the iron nail, right? See. Okay, once again I am connecting it. See, once again these pins are getting attracted towards the iron nail. So when I am going to kill the current, see, these pins will drop down. Now dear children, now there are some iron nails around, there are some small pins around the iron nail. It's because that when I am going to give the current, some amount of magnetic field is going to still stay along the iron nail. So that's why it's not getting fallen, right? So however, after some while, this iron nail will not have any magnetic properties. So you can see that now this iron nail do not have any magnetic properties. Means that only when providing current to the circuit like this, see, only when current is being provided, in that case only we can observe the magnetic field around the iron nail. Means that this is a setup, or this instrument is going to behave like a magnet, but this magnet is a temporary magnet. As we kill the current, the magnetism is going to disappear and the pins will fall down. So my dear children, we discussed how to make that. So according to the given method, according to the last method, we discussed how to create a temporary magnet, and we conducted the experiment in our laboratory, and we found out that this setup is going to behave as a magnet when only there is electric current. When only there is electric current, the setup is going to behave like a magnet, right? So observation, file clips are attracted when electricity is supplied. When you supply or when you turn on the switch, electricity is going to supply to the coil. In that situation, the file clips are getting attracted. I have given you the sample figures as well. File clips fall off means that they are not getting attracted, or they do not attract when electrical supply is disconnected. When you turn off the switch, here you can observe the switch has been turned off. So when you turn off the switch, the electricity will not travel through the coil, and in that kind of scenario, the file clips will fall down. Now you have a magnet, no? You can see by keeping that magnet what happens to the file clips. So here you can see that file clips are attracted to a permanent magnet. We studied that one, or we discussed that part at the very beginning of our lesson. File clips have magnetic properties, so they will be attracted to a magnet. Definitely they will attracted to a magnet. So when you take that permanent magnet and when you keep that thing on this file clips, those things will be definitely attracted to the permanent magnet. And when you turn on this setup also, you can observe that the file clips are going to attract to the iron nail. So in that kind of, in this situation, we can say that finally the file clips are getting attracted only to a magnet. We concluded that by using that permanent magnet over there. We concluded that thing by using the permanent magnet over there. So we can finally conclude that this setup which we created by using the file clip, by using the copper coil and the iron nail, is going to behave as a magnet. The specialty in here is that when you turn on the switch, or when electricity is going to flow from the coil, in that situation only the iron nail is going to behave as a magnet. When you disconnect the switch, in that situation, the magnetic power loses. So here, magnetism only observed on the iron nail when there is an electric current flowing through the coil. When electric current is flowing through the coil, we can observe a magnetic effect or else a magnetic field. Therefore, this setup acts as a temporary magnet. So, therefore, we can say that this setup acts as a temporary magnet, means that magnetic power is not going to last for longer time. When we disconnect the switch, or when we cut off the current, the magnetic power loses. So therefore, specially these type of magnets are referred as electromagnets, because we supply electricity to get a magnetic power. Right. This is how to make a temporary magnet and the behavior of a temporary magnet. So this is the behavior of a temporary magnet. When you kill the current, temporary magnet will definitely lose its magnetic field. Okay. So a setup that becomes a magnet only when electricity is supplied is known as electromagnet. So this magnet is called as an electromagnet because here only when electricity is supplied, this behaves as a magnet. Only when electricity is supplied, this setup behaves as a magnet. That is why it is called as a electromagnet. In an electromagnet, magnetic power remains only when electricity is supplied. So when you take a electromagnet, in an electromagnet, magnetism only lasts when there is electricity. Therefore, they are called temporary magnets. So that's why they are referred as the temporary magnets. After some time, when you cut off the electricity, then the magnetic power cannot be observed. That's why they are referred as temporary magnets specially. Magnetic power remains for a long time in bar magnets. So when you take bar magnets, when you take a bar magnet, that magnetic power of a bar magnet is going to last for a really long time, right? Like in years, the magnetic power of a bar magnet is going to last for years, means that very longer time, right? So therefore, these type of magnets are referred as permanent magnets. So therefore, they are called as permanent magnets. So the bar magnets that we used in our day-to-day life, those magnets are permanent magnets. The magnets which we created in the earlier activity, right, by using an iron nail and a copper wire, are referred as temporary magnets or electromagnets, right? Okay. So these are the two main types of magnets that we can observe, right? So in here, materials that show magnetic properties are used to make magnets. So materials that show magnetic properties are the ones which used to make a magnet. You can't use non-magnetic materials in making a magnet. Always we have to use a magnetic material in making a magnet. Steel, so here these things are really important. Steel, ferrite and soft iron. Steel, ferrite and soft iron are some magnetic materials which are used to make magnets. So to make magnets, in making of a magnet, we use these types of metals. What are those metals? Steel, ferrite. Steel, you know that steel, when starting the lesson, I told you that steel is a special type of an alloy which used to make a magnet. Alloy means it's been created by mixing two different materials with a different kind of a metal. Here especially when you take steel, steel is created by adding carbon or by mixing carbon with iron. Then ferrite. Ferrite is also a type of an alloy. Here oxides, oxygen is mixed with iron to make ferrite, oxides of iron, right? And soft iron is also a type of an ion, right? It's type of an alloy. So here these are the materials we use to make these permanent magnets. When you take this soft iron thing, most of the times we use soft iron to make electromagnets or else temporary magnets, right? Most of the times we use soft iron to make temporary magnets. You can see that thing when we are going to discuss these things, right? Okay, so various materials are used to produce various types of magnets, right? There are various types of magnets. Even we can use a metal called nickel. Nickel is also a type of a metal that we can use to create a magnet. Nickel, right? So we use different types of materials in making different types of magnets. Magnetic power remains for a long time in bar magnets, therefore these are called as permanent magnet. We discussed in the earlier slide that when you take permanent magnets, a bar magnet is also a type of a permanent magnet. Magnetic power, my dear children, this is a really important one. Check. Magnetic power is not retained in soft iron for a long time. When you take soft iron, I told you in the earlier case that soft iron thing is not used in making a permanent magnet, because when you take soft iron doesn't retain in, or soft iron is not going to retain the magnetic power for a longer time. So magnetic power is not retained in soft iron for a long time. Therefore, soft iron is used to make electromagnets and temporary magnets. So most of the times we use the soft iron to make electromagnet or else a temporary magnet, right? So that's the specialty in soft iron. When you take soft iron doesn't carry magnetic field for a longer time period. So therefore, these soft ions are used to make temporary magnets or else electromagnets. So I'll take the slide somewhat up. Magnets in which magnetic power is retained for a long time are permanent magnets. So these ones are known as permanent magnets, which the magnetism or the magnetic power is going to last for a longer time, right? So to make permanent magnets, in creating permanent magnets, steel or ferrite is used to make permanent magnets. So we use the other type of materials or the metals or the alloy which to make these permanent magnets. So what are those? Steel and ferrite is used to make permanent magnets, right? Especially this ferrite is used to make more powerful permanent magnets. To make more powerful permanent magnets, we use the material called ferrite. Okay, so this is how to create or to make a magnet, right? Commercially, magnets are being made by using these kind of materials, right? Okay, now here you can observe these electromagnets. Here you can see that coil which is being wrapped on the soft iron bar. This is soft iron. It's a soft iron bar, right? The coil which is being wrapped around a soft iron bar. And these are the permanent magnets which are made up with steel. By using steel, we can make these permanent magnets, right? And in here, you can observe permanent magnets which are made with ferrite that has a unique black color. See, it has a unique black color which is made up with ferrite. Okay, so these are the types of permanent and temporary magnets and how to create those magnets, right? Now we are going to discuss how to create a permanent magnet. So making a permanent magnet. So construction of permanent magnets using magnetic materials can be done in two ways. To construct a permanent magnet, we use two different methods. To construct a permanent magnet, we use two different methods. Number one, contact method. Number one is contact method. Contact method. In contact method, can you remember the activity that we used to create a compass? We took a needle and we rub it against a magnet. That method is referred as the contact method. In that situation, we are giving out the magnetic effect to the needle by contacting a permanent magnet on it. So by that way, the magnetic effect or the magnetic field, some amount of magnetic field can be transferred to the needle as well. So that method is referred as the contact method. Then the second one is the electrical method. Means that by providing electricity also we can make a permanent magnet, right? So there are two possible ways in creation of a permanent magnet. One thing is the contact method and the other thing is the electrical method, right? Right, now we'll see how to create a permanent magnet, right? And how we can create, how we could make a permanent magnet in our next chapter.